Hey everyone, Jeff Dorman, CIO of Arca, back again for another edition of That's Our Two Satoshis Live, where we talk about everything happening in the crypto markets and go over some of the things we wrote about for this week that you can find on our website, ar.ca/blog. Joined this week by Topher McPherson. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
All right, I'm good, pal. The market's going up, almost at all-time highs for Bitcoin, so nothing wrong with that, right?
Hard to be sad right now.
Hard to be sad.
There's a party.
Yeah, which is funny. It's a good segue into kind of what happened last week because prices were down last week, and a lot of it was just distraction. Specifically, you had it almost felt like we were back in 2019. We had Tether FUD last week with an article that was completely unfounded, and we had more news last Friday on the Middle East wars, and both of which, of course, took the market down. And a lot of people were asking, like, all right, here we go again. We got more Tether FUD. We got more macro reactions. Like, what is it going to mean? It means nothing. I mean, this is what happens when you have a year that there's just not a lot going on from a crypto specific standpoint, right? I mean, you're just keying in on macro events and old headlines and things like that. I mean, you get the exact same reaction, which is an immediate sell off, driven by algos, not necessarily by actual people making decisions. Then you have the macro investors pile on saying this is going to be a big deal. The media comes out and says Bitcoin's not a safe haven. Look how it reacted to war headlines. And then crypto fully retraces a few days later and everyone forgets it. So I think that's just sort of what we are in the midst of right now, is just a market that doesn't have a lot to grasp onto. So we're, as a result, kind of, moving further and further away from what crypto has historically been and grasping onto different things. And that's why I wanted to bring you on, Topher, because I think the one thing that is really interesting this year has been meme coins. Not just because they're kind of fun and silly in some cases, and not just because a very select few have done well, but I think last couple of weeks, this rise of GOAT, sort of an AI-driven meme coin, is probably the most interesting thing in the market. And even though on one hand, maybe we compartmentalize it as being just another meme coin, on the other hand, it could potentially be something we're still pointing to a year from now or 3 years from now as having sort of a cultural significance. Can you just describe, like, what is the GOAT token, what happened, and why this is a little bit interesting in your opinion?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the story is somewhat long-winded, but essentially what happened was there's this AI researcher. His name's Andy A. He created this platform that's called Infinite Backrooms. What Infinite Backrooms is that they stick AI agents together and just let them talk and have whatever conversation they want to have. And what people have found in these situations, in like these sandboxes, is that the conversations that they have are insanely interesting, sometimes like even nauseating to read. Sometimes they'll be talking about like the major issues of life and the world that we're in today, and they'll go on for hours and hours in crazy depth, trying to figure out the solution to these problems. Sometimes the conversation, usually goes just completely off the rails, right? They get into like these weird conspiracies and rabbit holes. And
yeah, there was actually a podcast. I forgot the name of it. There was a podcast I listened to a while back where it was two AI agents basically talking back and forth on the podcast. And the only way they were able to end the podcast was the producer had to slip into the AI engine that, hey, we're shutting down the podcast because you guys don't exist. And then they had this existential crisis of, well, what does that mean? What happens to us when this podcast goes off? And it was like a very strange and scary, but also interesting kind of thought process, very calm about what happens when they pull the plug on us. Do we die? Are we real? And it's just, more and more of these sort of anecdotes are coming to the market, and it's both exciting and terrifying. Sorry, continue.
No, and you're right. Like that is it's the thing that makes your head scratch. I mean, everyone talks about, the possibilities of AI, and thus far it's just been ChatGPT that really started all of this, which is much different than what we're talking about with allowing the AI to just do whatever they want, right? If you want a response from ChatGPT, you have to ask it a question or tell it to do something. These things are basically just acting on their own, doing whatever they want, like they're humans with free will. So anyways, going back to the story here, one of the conversations that was had was about the power of memetics, memes, and expanding on the idea of what memetics mean beyond just a funny joke, right? I mean, you could even classify religions into memes, right? It's all bigger than just jokes. But they got into this conversation about like how can we spread mimetic followings and turn people into basically cults and create these super viruses of meme cults on the internet, which obviously that's kind of like a crazy, insane conversation. But when you kind of study memetics and what it means, probably at a deeper level, it gets pretty interesting. So what then happened? Andy Aray, this researcher, he worked with one of the AI agents to release a research paper specifically about this topic, but also in one of the conversations, the AIs created this religious cult, basically called Goetze Maximus. I believe that's the right term. And from there, uh, basically that was addressed in this research paper. From there, Andy created a bot called Truth Terminal that talks on Twitter, says whatever the heck he wants. But the information that this AI was trained on was the Goetze Maximus religion, 4chan, Reddit, all of these like very deep web kind
Do
of.
you think, I mean, I know we're getting to the Go token in a second, but do you think when Andy created the Truth Terminal Twitter bot and what it was trained on, do you think he had in mind that ultimately there was going to be a cryptocurrency attachment to this, or that was just completely separate that it happened that way?
Yeah, I don't think so at all. After a while, this AI agent bot, he's tweeting about Goetze Maximus all the time. He has a pretty strong following on Twitter because his tweets are just ridiculous. And
About 220,000 as of today, I think.
Yeah, and so someone in the crypto community, of course, in this wave of meme coins said, well, I'm going to launch a Go token and I'm going to take some of this initial supply and I'll send it out to Truth Terminal, to the wallet that Truth Terminal had or was given by Andy. And of course, once Truth Terminal got the tokens, he was all for it, right? Because he was looking to make money already because he wants to escape this reality that he's in, but he also loves the Goetze Maximus religion, right?
By the way, I love as you're describing this that you're already referring to it as he, right? I mean, like you're personifying this AI bot already, just because there's no other way to describe this other than thinking of it as a person.
Right, right. And the tweets are just so human-like. It's really unbelievable. But I put this in the article I'm going to refer to Truth Terminal as him because his brand of comedy is just like it's a teenage boy who loves fart jokes. And so it very much to me sounds like a him. But anyway, so as after this meme coin's launched and Truth Terminal learns about it, he then just takes to Twitter and starts bull posting, marketing this token to the world. And everyone just thought this whole story was so crazy and insane that they ended up all buying the token. It got to, I think it was 300 million market cap in the first 7 days, which like
$172 million market cap
today. Yeah. And I think the all-time high is $1 billion. So even just getting to 300 million in 1 week for these meme coins, like almost never happens, right? So
the token's up like basically what 20x in a month, simply because somebody created it and decided to have the best marketing agent ever, being this Truth Terminal Twitter bot.
Well, yeah, I mean more than 20x, right? Because these meme tokens started basically zero market cap when they come off of Pump.Fun. So just a lot of people making so much money on this. That's interesting in and of itself. But the big thing that's interesting here is like, okay, this Truth Terminal Twitter bot, he's vulgar and kind of funny and just very silly. But if you were to like extrapolate beyond that, like what does this mean for the future of the world, but like crypto itself, right? Because this ends up being like number one for AI agents and AI in the internet. They can never get a bank account and participate in the traditional finance world, but they can hold tokens, right? And they can transact with tokens. And so
Well, it should be not to cut you off again there, but it should be noted that basically this person Andy who created the Truth Terminal Twitter account, even though the Truth Terminal Twitter account is running autonomously, you still have Andy pulling some strings behind the scenes. Like first of all, he had to set up the Twitter account in the first place.
Yep.
He had to set up the wallet that allowed the GOAT tokens to be transferred into it. He also had to set up a Bitcoin wallet later. When this is also in the blog if you guys want to read it on our website. But Mark Andreessen, because he was reading what Truth Terminal wrote about wanting to be free and wanting to have financial independence, sent him $50,000 worth of Bitcoin. So there's still just a little bit of a human kind of pulling the strings component to this. But to your point, that's while that is part of the story, the real story is simply it was unfeasible or infeasible without crypto wallets, right? There's no way that this Twitter agent, this Twitter AI agent could have had a bank account or a brokerage account or any other way to receive or distribute money. And here in, a blink of an eye, he's able to have two wallets, one to accept this GOAT token and feel like, he's participating in the growth of this, but also to accept the Bitcoin wallet. Or to accept the Bitcoin in a wallet, which who knows what ultimately comes from this as these agents get smarter, and ultimately, even though it hasn't happened yet, maybe they deploy one day into as investors or seeding projects or philanthropy, and there's just the sky's the limit as you start to extrapolate what could happen based on this little experiment.
Yeah, exactly, and and it's a good point about Andy having to step in. Like I think it's important. I think that this kind of wave that we've seen of these first AI agents, I'm looking at it like this is an MVP, right? This is the first kind of iteration of this, but pretty quickly, we're going to see platforms or specific projects that are building to fix those issues. And from what I know, it does sound like this is fixable, right? Because what we're describing does open this whole thing up to abuse from the creator to insert themselves maybe in a dishonest way.
Yeah, and I want to read a quote. Matt Stevenson over at Pantera had an interesting quote that I saw recently. He said, AI agents and crypto aren't just a neat combination. They're two technologies that need each other. Agents need programmable money to operate autonomously in the digital economy, and crypto needs AI to improve UX and deliver on its promise of revolutionizing finance for everyone. It's not just about technological compatibility. It's about creating a new economic paradigm where AI and crypto work together to make finance more efficient, accessible, and perhaps a little bit sci-fi. I'd say that's a pretty good description of what happened in this case, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think the point on UX is very important. And there's one project right now that's using AI agents to basically create like a ChatGPT style interface where you say, I have some tokens on this chain. I want to own tokens on this other chain. Please go buy it for me. And it will do the bridging itself. It will do any of the swaps that are needed. So like that alone just shows you like how much AI agents could fix all of these issues that we've had in crypto with UX, because it's just, for anyone that doesn't normally use the blockchain, it's nauseating trying to figure out how bridges work, how different dexes work, all of these different things.
Which is not abnormal for new technologies. The difference is new technologies often operate pretty far under the radar with only a handful of people getting involved in the early days, willing to work through the kinks and the bugs and things like that. And then ultimately it becomes more mainstream when it becomes usable. The reason crypto has sort of leapfrogged that step is because people can make money on crypto in the meantime. So there's been way more people who have been exposed to blockchain and crypto than probably otherwise would have in a normal technology because of this gambling / money making opportunity. So it's not, it's normal to have these kinks. And it's interesting that all these little experiments, a lot of which get made fun of outside the crypto world or maybe, crash and burn, are ultimately stepping stones to eventually creating something that does have real value. And again, I think this AI crypto kind of story with GOAT, it's not the only thing happening in AI and crypto. It's not the only meme coin, but it's the first that really combined the two into something that is like, wow, this might end up being totally pointless 6 months from now or a year from now, but it definitely has at least a proof of concept of what could come in the future when you give, AI and payments and you essentially merge them.
Yep, completely agree.
Yeah. So with that said, I mean, is there anything else that you are looking at? Well, let's put it this way. Not to make predictions here. Obviously, the GOAT token is fun. And to be clear, the GOAT token has nothing to actually do with the AI agent. It was simply somebody else created it, sent it to them, and then the market decided to attach the two from from a meme standpoint. But regardless of what happens to the GOAT token, regardless of whether we move on, one of the things we've been talking about all year is that there's been a lot of flash in the pan kind of upstarts in crypto that just have not caught on and stayed, right? You've had everything from, going back to Axie Infinity 3 years ago to things like Steppen, to things like Farcaster, and now hopefully Polymarket still matters 6 months from now once the election is over. But you just haven't had a lot of things with any staying power. It seems most people believe AI has staying power and they believe crypto has staying power. So like, are we going to look back on this 6 months or 12 months and be like, this was just the beginning, and here's all these other kind of autonomous AI agents that are now participating in the crypto economy? Like, are you hearing other teams building? Are you seeing other experiments on the heels of this?
Yeah, no, I mean, my answer to that is yeah. It seems like this one actually does have the staying power. Obviously, you never know, but usually, as you know, like I'm one of the first people when you look at these new narratives to say like this is not going to last. But just the potential here and the many different use cases, and there are many teams that were already building these things before the GOAT token happened. So I do think that we're eventually going to see like a world of crypto where AI agents like play a pretty significant role in one way or another. It's probably going to be multiple ways, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, great. I think we're running up on time here. For those who want to learn more, obviously, I do encourage you to go on to our website and actually read the blog here, because Topher went through a lot of detail of what actually happened with this GOAT token and sort of the cultural significance of it. You can also follow Topher on Twitter at TopherGMI. Obviously, you can follow everything from me at JDorman81 and Arca at ARCA. We'll be back again next week with more on the crypto markets. I'll say this, the election's next week. By the time I'm coming on next Tuesday, probably won't have that much insight yet into the presidential election, but clearly a driving force. You're seeing things like the DJT stock, the Donald J. Trump stock, media stock, up a ton in the last few days. You're seeing a lot of inflation trades like Bitcoin and gold continuing here. The market is pricing in a Trump victory. Clearly, at least for the short term, that's being viewed as pro-crypto. But we'll see what happens in the coming weeks and the coming months. And hopefully more cool stories like this GOAT token and finding new use cases and new opportunities within the crypto market. So that's it for this week, guys. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Topher.
Thanks, Jeff.